The United States of America had split up in many ways towards the end of the Civil War. The economy was failing and there were extreme amounts of political uproar. Farmers were not able to adjust right away to the end of slavery as they were accustomed to their control over the labor force in the era of slavery. Along with this, many smaller white farmers lost their land due to poverty after the war, and others ended up becoming dependent on local merchants, leading them to a cycle of massive debt. African Americans began to take part in the government on all levels, which resulted in many Southerners, namely white supremacists, becoming extremely aggravated. Society itself was falling apart as the country was split into two, and brutal racism continued. This was seen through Jim Crow laws, segregation, and most importantly, the entertainment industry. During the Reconstruction era, the United States realized they had to reform and reunite quickly. This took place between 1865 and 1877 following the American Civil War, in which Americans attempted to fix the injustices of slavery and its legacy that led to the secession of 11 Southern states. Southern states implemented black codes, which restricted African American rights, and soon after, the 13th Amendment was passed to abolish slavery. Soon after, the Civil Rights Act of 1866 was enacted, which stated that all United States citizens were protected equally under the law and made it illegal to deny anyone citizenship on the basis of race or color. Thus, the KKK rose up to intimidate the African Americans and restore white rule. The Reconstruction era was the peak of the Ku Klux Klan, a well-known white supremacist group formed by Confederate veterans that participated in terrifying acts. What started off as a small secret society quickly transformed into a paramilitary force. These men, who called themselves Imperial Wizards, killed hundreds of blacks in the South along with their white supporters. They also sexually assaulted hundreds of black women and men, forced thousands of blacks out of their homes, and even more were driven out of their employment. They would even use blackface to mock African Americans. The way many Americans treated the KKK showed a sign of honor, almost romanticizing slavery and racism as a whole. Patterns of Southern Romanticism can be heavily traced back to post-Civil War movements such as the Lost Cause. The Lost Cause is a prime example of Southern Romanticism and Southern exceptionalism, in which white Southerners created a new ending for the Civil War. These people said that the Confederacy did not lose to the Union because of a lack of military skills, but rather because of the overwhelming resources and numbers, according to General Lee's farewell order. Contributors to the Lost Cause additionally said that most of the Confederacy's leaders were great exemplars of old-fashioned chivalry. In order to honor the Anglo-Saxon race, theatrics were used to diminish African Americans. Being used as a form of theatrical makeup, blackface was used by non-black performers in order to depict a heavily exaggerated image of an African American. Minstrel shows were popular stage entertainment that featured songs, dances, and comic dialogue to mock African Americans. The Minstrel Show Guide from the late 1800s explains to the actors how to do blackface to exaggerate African American facial features, like making the mouth look bigger. The guide also states to wear anything that will portray the blacks as eccentric. African Americans were often depicted as dumb, lazy, and superstitious people in these shows.
The early film, Birth of a Nation, produced in 1955, depicted the Ku Klux Klan as brave soldiers that were saving the South from freed slaves. One scene in the movie is shown on the plantation, and the African Americans are smiling while picking up flowers, rather than cotton. The slaves are then shown during what seems like a wonderful 2-hour dinner break, dancing and having fun together, while the white masters are watching and smiling. The beloved actress, Judy Garland, who played Dorothy in the original Wizard of Oz, appeared in the extremely controversial Everybody Sing. Garland played a young actress who started in a minstrel show. In one scene, Garland's character appears in blackface to audition for a musical. The song that Garland sings is Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, which was inspired by the experience of slaves in the early 19th century. The song is inspired by slaves' hopes that they will eventually find comfort in heaven.
Swing low, sweet chariot, coming forth to carry me home.
Gone with the Wind remains a controversial issue up until this day. Released in 1939, the governor of Georgia created a state holiday just for the movie's release. The movie's romanticism, slavery, and racism was a tool used to acknowledge the existence of plantation South without putting the blame on the whites. Journalist John Beefus explains how the movie romanticizes the plantation South, suggesting that the true Old South was a place filled with happy darkies who were benefiting from the gentle temperaments of their masters. Though this movie was one of the highest-grossing movies in history, its racist undertone shines through in ways that can change the public's opinions to thinking that slavery was okay. Skipping forward to more recent times, a classic Disney film that portrays racism in subtle ways is the 1941 Dumbo. In the film, Dumbo meets a group of crows who display African American stereotypes of that time period. The group of crows sing jazzy, gospel-like songs and speak jive-like. To top off the stereotypes, the leader of the crows is named Jim Crow. The only instance in which black people are shown on the screen is when they are working hard in the rain, singing the song of Roustabouts, and they do not even have faces. The African Americans are also compared to elephants, like Dumbo in the scene. Both of the blacks and the elephants perform the same tasks, hammering a large nail into the ground. Some of the lyrics of their song include,
We work all day, we work all night, we never learn to read or write, we're happy-hearted roustabouts.
The blacks in this film are depicted as slaving away until they're almost dead, yet shown to be happy about it. This is eerily similar to another Disney film, Song of the South. In the 1946 film, a colored storyteller by the name of Uncle Remus tells young spirited folktales about a trickster rabbit. Uncle Remus's character is goofy and lighthearted. What may have seemed like an effort to be color inclusive at the time period of its release date has manifested into another example of a silver screen minstrel show. When Uncle Remus is not singing about tar babies, he explains why he likes everybody's favorite song, Zippity Doo Dah Days. He backs up his preference by saying,
Dah days. Now that's the kind of day when you can't open your mouth without a song jump right out of it.
This line supports the common myth of the South, that slaves are happy in the cotton fields because of the cheerful songs that they sing. This common misconception was brought to attention by Frederick Douglass in the 19th century, where he stated, quote, "It is impossible to conceive of a greater mistake. Slaves sing most when they are most unhappy," end quote.
Fast forwarding to present day, mainstream music is being heavily influenced by the controversies surrounding the maltreatment of African Americans in the past. The infamous This Is America music video has received an immense amount of recognition for the topics covered in the song. Other music, such as that of Tyler, the Creator, has similar brow-raising themes. In his music video for the 2013 song Tamale, Tyler, the Creator, is pictured smoking a cigarette plastered in white face paint. Immediately, the viewer reactions began to overflow in the comment section, with one commenter writing, "First question, how come when white people put on blackface it's racist, but when Tyler, the Creator, puts on whiteface, it's funny?" While many do not understand the historical context that comes with this performance, the comment upholds the common white ideology that African Americans are inherently inferior. Currently, there are strong efforts to push back against the stereotypes and romanticism of the plantation South that we still see in the entertainment industry.
You're seeing more filmmakers like Jordan Peele who are doing phenomenal things. Spike Lee is doing, still making movies.
The popular film 12 Years a Slave, produced in 2013, shows the truth of slavery without painting a romantic story around the institution. The powerful and devastating depiction of slavery and racism contradicts the romance shown in years previous, the harsh reality of slavery being eye-opening. Pictured in the film are the lash scars and lynchings that blacks experienced through their time as slaves. In addition, famous singer Jay-Z produced the song The Story of O.J. in 2017, commenting on racism and slavery in an extreme way. The song begins with the tune of Nina Simpson's For Women, a song about how black women were completely brainwashed into hating the way they looked.
What do they call me?
The black caricatures in the music video of Jay-Z's track have over-exaggerated facial features, like their lips and teeth, which was very prominent in the 19th century's minstrel shows. This is followed by O.J. Simpson's famous line during his trial.
I'm not black, I'm O.J.
This line references the fact that O.J. believed he could simply escape the color of his skin, which Jay-Z seems to dispute by saying,
Okay.
almost disappointingly after his O.J. line. The chorus of the song then lists different labels given to African Americans throughout the years, which shows that no matter how rich, poor, or successful blacks were in the 19th and 20th centuries, the color of their skin ultimately led them to being greatly inferior in the eyes of racists. Tragic events revolving around Southern Romanticism have been brewing for centuries, and have recently reached a new height with the Charlottesville Confederate statue. The statue displaying Confederate General Robert E. Lee has been disputed since the mid-1900s. This caused massacre to strike on August 12, 2017,
in which peaceful protests quickly became violent, leading to the injury of several people. 2 days after this riot, President Trump gave the rioters a pass, arguing that there was blame on both sides, referring to the counter-protesters, and said that some of these white supremacists were very fine people. The viewpoints that these white supremacist protesters, and even the United States president have, perpetuates racism and the discrimination against the minority group of African Americans. These viewpoints result in a conflict with reality and those who are trying to address historical flaws like the statues, all starting during the Reconstruction era.